Okay, shall I start or wait for 2-3 minutes? Hello?
Hello? Yes, sir.
Shall I start or wait for 2-3 minutes? How many people are there on board?
So there are four people only, sir. We can wait for 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll wait for 2-3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you can start the class, sir.
Start the class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How many people are there?
Sir, 5.
5 people. Okay, I'll start the class.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So strategy implementation. In the first note, it was discussed in a note by Professor Krishna Kumar. That strategy implementation is all about designing the structure and the systems. Okay, at this side. So in strategy implementation, we'll be talking about leadership, devoting a session on leadership. Then we talk about mergers and acquisitions. Then we'll also discuss role of culture in organizations. Why we have to study culture is because Professor Sarto calls culture equal to structure plus system. So we have to study culture also. Then we look at how to handle strategic change. Typically, here I'll be talking about a study with which my students had done on Indian and German firms that encountered change of strategy. So this paper also I will be discussing. Then we'll talk about how to resolve conflicts. Typically, production and marketing are at loggerheads. So we'll describe this situation and look at means how to resolve them. And I'll be talking about international business. A few exposure to that. And then we'll be also be talking about technology management. So this technology management is a bit, it's not interrelated with the overall theme of implementation, but still devoting a session on technology management would be in order. So this diagram I'm quoting from Professor Sarto's book on strategic management, which does it in this fashion. So strategy formulation can be two things. One is good and other is bad. And then we have here strategy implementation. So this can be good and this can be bad. Here in this cell, it's all fine. It's a happy situation. Whereas the strategy formulation is bad and implementation is good, it will quicken the failure. Sorry, I'm drawing the diagram. Whereas strategy implementation is bad and strategy good formulation is good, that means we have trouble. And strategy formulation is bad and implementation is bad, it is a disaster. these are the four possibilities, and it shows how the things will be. The strategy formulation is varying on two dimensions, that is good and bad, and strategy implementation is also good and bad. So if something goes wrong, you have to see whether strategy was good, formulation was good, or whether the strategy formulation was bad or strategy implementation was bad, or both were bad. You know, so it calls for diagnosis, and judgment. And it so happens. So this is what actually, this is a online and technology enabled class, and in this we cannot hold case studies where a case is given to student, and then he sort of prepares it, comes up with recommendations, and there is a discussion in the class. So that kind of a scenario is not possible, and also because the cases are very expensive. Harvard Business Review case will cost you more than 1,000 rupees a case per person, per class. It's very expensive. So that is why I am giving you best of the theories to you, so that theoretically you are on a sound footing. Now for strategy implementation, there are four approaches. What is the commander approach? It's also popularly known as top-down approach. The second approach is a collaborative approach. Where the and the next approach is a cultural approach. This can be sort of likened to theory Y, where people participate. Whereas here we have a cultural approach where you empower employees, and this is likened to theory Z. And entire organization participates in strategy implementation. Next is referred to as a recessive approach. It is also likened to an interactive approach. So you wait to commit your resources until uncertainty unfolds. Until the uncertainty unfolds. Okay. And as the uncertainty unfolds, you will like to revise your strategy formulation too. You know, so here strategy formulation and implementation goes hand in hand. So Professor Sato has given these four approaches. Now I may like to relate it to strategy types or uncertainty in the organization. When will you use the commander approach or a top-down approach? When uncertainty is high or uncertainty is low? That's the question to yourself. You can answer it within your mind. And now I'm giving the answer. You need to use commander approach when uncertainty is low. And the next question, you again answer it within your mind. Which organization has least uncertainty? Cost leader, differentiator, or innovator? The answer is cost leader. And typically here you use a commander approach is used for cost leaders where uncertainty is quite low. So you can go for a big, you can go for strategy implementation in a big bang. And collaborative approach is typically used in differentiate, I mean, when uncertainty is a bit higher. Because as the customer has more money in the pocket, he demands specialty products. Product. Then he demands and people say they are fickle-minded customers with ever-changing taste and preferences. And cultural approach is used when uncertainty is very high. Typically, the differentiator here it is used for differentiator at lower end. Here it is used for differentiators at higher end market or 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 for innovative organizations. And Crescendo approach is used when uncertainty is at the highest. No studies have been done on this, but my hunch is architectural innovation will use this approach because here uncertainty is the highest. The studies have been done, but I'm just logically arguing out. So, having listed out these approaches, strategy implementation, let me take a revision. So we have seen a functional structure, answer this question within your mind and verify when I say it is suitable for whom. It is suitable for diversified majors. Then BU structure is suitable for conglomerates. An SBU structure where strategic business units means units, BUs with similar strategies BUs with similar strategies are grouped together okay, and it is most suitable for implementation of horizontal strategy. And Professor Salto says that a layer of management is added between BUs and a layer of management is added between BUs and a top management core group such as Tata Sons that will ensure smooth implementation of horizontal strategy, and it is referred to as horizontal structure. My PhD student has done enormous work on the properties of horizontal structure that must be there for success of horizontal strategy. If I find time, I would dwell on it, or I will postpone it to the next class. So we come again to the processive approach, which is an interactive approach. You know, so it's like planning on the left and managing on the right. This is the title of a paper by Sir Mintzberg, a big authority in the field of business strategy. It is well known among the psychologists, neurologists, psychiatrists, etc. Those who specialize in the study of the brain, that the left hemisphere of the brain there are what is known as logical, sequential, and conscious processes. So here is what is known as, you say there is a famous statement by economists that man is rational. He reasons out everything. So the persons who are left-brained, they'll be doing planning, and essentially it means they'll be doing what is known as strategy formulation. And in the right hemisphere of the human brain, let me qualify here. The right hemisphere of the human brain, there are processes like holistic approach. You take everything into totality and make a judgment. It's also referred to as Gestalt approach. Take a total, take a total view and make a judgment. And typically, I forgot to tell you that these processes are explicit and these processes are implicit. and these processes are implicit. And it also refers to as these processes are subconscious. Subconscious processes, not well, not well articulated. That means the right hemisphere, you are doing strategy implementation. And what Mintzberg argues that in organizations, you need both kind of people. People who will be doing planning, logical thinking, sequential processes, conscious processes, have a plan. So you do strategy formulation and have a plan, and also have what is known as contingency plan. If plan A fails, fall back on plan B. And strategy implementation is, I will just describe the various processes. For example, Mintzberg has given so many examples. He gives verbal communication. For example, in the modern world, you just receive an email. But managers, the managers prefer face-to-face meeting because he can see while communicating. While communicating, you can see gestures, facial expressions, and so on. And these communicate much more information than just the content of the verbal communication. And so and these gestures tell you more about things than just plain content, the message. So what Mintzberg calls is these facial expressions, gestures, and kind of responses you make that communicate you more, and that gives you a holistic picture of what's going on and which action to take and which action not to take. That's a guide to action. And most of the information which managers have is fuzzy. Because I already told you in the first class, management is all about fuzzy information, and these problems are not formulable. Fuzzy information, you just have gossip, hearsay, etc., and situation is unstructured. So typically, these strategy formulators make certain assumptions. I mean, that modeling is also good because some modeling is required. Okay. So you make certain approximations and then have a model for which you have a logical solution. That's what the strategy formulators will do. But strategy implementers will have to deal with this fuzzy hearsay, gossip, and this kind of information, and then take a decision. You know, there is always a the people have different skills. So, for example, a strategy formulator would be good at mathematics. Good at mathematics, but strategy implementer would be very good at figuring out quickly the prevailing political situation in a group, and then he knows where to align and what action to take, which this person who is good at mathematics may not be able to figure out. So these processes are subconscious, implicit, and so on. For example, then Mintzberg argues that leadership has following components: disturbance handler, control and surveillance, and he's a spokesman. He's a negotiator. He also bargains. And he's an entrepreneur. He takes risks. Maybe mostly calculated. Maybe mostly calculated. And he's also a resource allocator. Remember, I told you that in market leveraging, you have to decide how much to put in each of, how much money to put in each of uh, the 4 P's, so that we have maximum impact. Now, this is a problem which even now, I mean, when I say even now in the area of social media, artificial intelligence and machine learning age, even in this age, this problem remains unstructured. So, if he has to exhibit leadership, all the components require you to take a totally different approach, deal with fuzzy data, unstructured situations. Okay, and what Mintzberg calls is you need to do analysis of not structured situations, but unstructured situations. Analysis of unstructured situations. Then he needs to make a judgment. He needs to deal with dynamism. You know, remember, you must, if you have read the simultaneous paper which I sent you, where he says strategy is like aiming at a moving target. All these processes which have listed down under SI, these are the jobs of strategy implementation. And since it is subconscious, unstructured, fuzzy, okay, it has so happened that even today, the literature on strategy formulation is more well developed than literature on strategy implementation. Because these processes are subconscious and not well articulated. So that is how Mintzberg. So nowadays there is a lot of premium on good strategy implementers. So when Mintzberg says planning on the left and managing on the right, he's also talking about a recessive approach where strategy formulation and strategy implementation goes hand in hand. The thing is, If strategy implementer is not convinced about strategy that is being formulated, then he won't know what he is implementing. You know, so he should also be involved in the strategy formulation process, so that he has that conviction that this is what should be done, and then he takes an appropriate action. So this is the approach which Mintzberg has recommended, and this is very similar to what Sato has thought about. Interestingly, I will tell you about Japanese way of doing things. They take long time to come to consensus, but implement it very fast. That is their way of doing it. You know, so of course there are cultural differences. What works for them, it doesn't work for us. And if you are looked at hostile cultural dimension on the internet, you will find that Japan is high on collectivism. Now, still some time is left. So let me come down to Pratima Verma's thesis, where I have made some rough notes. I just present the theme one. See, why I'm taking up this uh, thesis is it will help you how to read a paper. You directly come down to his hypothesis. Okay. It says that relationship between power distance and horizontal strategy is negative. So let me put down here, which means we are referred to horizontal structure. It is a layer between BUs and top management like Tata Sons. It says, I mean, it's a creative process. Knowledge transfer from one BU to another BU is a different kind of innovation because conditions are different and you have to apply the knowledge you have in different conditions to a different condition. Okay. It's like, tractor in Europe being redesigned to work in India. The temperatures are very low. Here temperatures are high. So it requires some kind of a tweaking here and there. So I will say transfer of knowledge from one environment to another is some kind of innovation, and some authorities have called it as architectural innovation. I mean, it is that difficult. Okay? And in this thing, if you have a master and slave kind of a culture, master and slave of a culture, which means that power distance is high, then horizontal strategy will be unsuccessful. So this is what the statement she made, and the empirical study has verified this hypothesis. I would like to draw your attention to, that the MiG-23 or some such plane, which works fine in Russia, but in India it has become a flying coffin because conditions are different. For that, you need to make right amount of changes so that the technology transfer is successful. So MiG-23 is okay in Russia, but is a flying coffin in India. So literally, knowledge transferred from one situation to another situation is an architectural innovation, as some authorities have called it. It's very difficult. It's not easy. And therefore, you need a horizontal structure where you do not have master and slave kind of a relationship. Now, the second hypothesis says that uncertainty avoidance should be low. You should try out new things. So that horizontal strategy horizontal strategy implementation or exploiting interrelationships is successful. And this hypothesis is also verified by the real life data. So what you should do when you read a paper, just look at the theoretical contribution the paper has made. Paper would have made a theoretical contribution in terms of new propositions that it is giving. Just look at the introduction, skip literature review, straight away come down to uh, theoretical contribution, and see in the conclusions which theoretical contributions are supported by real life data. So I'm writing it down here. It will be useful for your presentations. When you read a paper, when you read a research paper, you read abstract, read introduction, skip literature review, quickly come down to theoretical contribution, or new propositions made. Okay. What new thing the paper is saying, focus on new thing the paper says. Skip methodology, come down to which propositions are supported and which are not. If not, then look at what reason he has given for this, and then so typically Dr. Pratima's thesis is about 400 pages. So you need not read every word of it. Directly come down to theoretical contribution and then look at conclusions. Which hypotheses are supported, which hypotheses are not supported. That's a quick way of reading a paper. So through this presentation of a PhD thesis, this is what I'm going to do all my with students' thesis, which I'm going to present here, which are based on strategy, business strategy. First on strategy implementation, and then on E of business strategy. This is the approach I'm going to follow. Okay. So I advise you to use this approach too. Okay. So we have only covered two hypotheses. Other hypothesis I will cover in the next class when we meet on Wednesday. Okay. So only 1 minute, our time is up, so I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.